and welcome to DieCastRestos. I'm Jason and this is the 57C Land Rover Fire Truck. This Land Rover was in the Matchbox range from 1966 until 1970. It switched to Superfast in 1969. It was always red, with a blue window unit, blue beacon and a grey plastic base. The base included a rear end moulding of the appliance hose pipes and all of the fittings. The base had a sliding plastic tab that allowed for the suspension to be activated and deactivated. Removable white plastic ladders were attached to the roof and added play value. Shield decals were applied to the doors and Kent Fire Brigade was emblazoned on the sides. Labels were to later replace the decals, with the lettering going first and later the shield. As such, the casting markings for aligning the decals were later removed. Initially, silver trim was applied to the bumper and the headlights. Later it was just the bumper and then not at all. The model is based on a Land Rover Series 2A Ford Control. The cabs in the Ford Control were positioned over the engine to allow for more space for equipment. So here's the base in some detail. You can see the little plastic suspension piece, which is often found on the interiors and not really seen on most other models. But here you can flick it forwards and backwards and you can see that if you flick it towards the front of the model, the suspension will work. And there's just a shot of some of the detail in that rear end. Here I'm using my modified drill bit to remove the plastic windscreen. Using a 1.5mm drill bit I can drill out the rivet posts and then they can be tapped with an M2 screw tap. Using my rotary tool I will remove the wheels from the axles. But I will keep the plastic suspension unit in place. It was already a bit flimsy and looked like it could break if it was removed. Here are all the component parts for the model. Now I can pop the Land Rover into a bowl with some very, very hot water and I can apply the caustic soda. After a brief soak in the caustic soda, I can use my wire wheel to brush up the casting. Fewer than 2,500 Ford Controls were produced, but they were generally underpowered with a 2.25 litre engine and then later a 2.6 litre petrol engine, considering the 1.5 tonne load capacity. Here I'm applying some Tamiya Fine Surface Primer in light grey. In 1966, Land Rover released the 2B Ford Control, adding the 2.25 litre diesel engine as an option, but with heavier duty axles fitted. Land Rover produced the 2B of the Ford Control until 1974. Primer's done its job well here, picking out all of those nice details. You can see those rivets, the casting markings, all those fine details on the back as well. My go-to red is the TS8 Italian red from Tamiya. I've used this on all of my red models so far and it's really good. It's really bright and vivid. The hue is quite similar to that of some of the variants that were produced by Matchbox, but as we know, they wildly vary. Here's a bit of a close-up. I'm thinking it's looking pretty decent so far. I'm very happy with this colour. No pooling. And it seems to have coated evenly. This is just after one coat, remember. Here I'm cleaning up the plastic components. So that was the beacon first up. And then it's the turn of the windscreen. The base gets a scrub up. A few rusty patches from the axles present there, they brush away. Then I can do the wheels. Here's a quick time lapse of applying the Auto Sol to polish up the windscreen, following my own advice and doing the interior before the exterior. And then, very fiddly job, but I do the beacon as well. Once that's all done, I can pop them into the Astonish wood floor polish to really make that windscreen pop. I'll repeat the process with the beacon as well. These beacons tend to get fairly scratched up. I've tried to buff away as much of the imperfection as I can, but I can't seem to find any replacement parts for these either, so I have to make do with what I've got, unfortunately. Next, I'll use the Citadel Gloss Nuln Oil to paint the wheels in a nice new shade of black. I think using this over a wheel wash has probably been my best decision so far in all of my restorations. And with that, we move on to the transfer application. Unfortunately, I had a hard time finding any decent quality transfers, and I ended up buying some from eBay. My usual outlet of modelsuppliers.co.uk don't stock these for whatever reason, and I wasn't too happy with the quality of them. They're very thin and fiddly. The letter E kind of looks a bit half finished on each of them, and the shield on one of them even breaks off entirely. I endeavoured to fix this at some point, perhaps by printing off my own ones. I do need to get myself some more decent transfer paper after I tried doing my own transfers in the build-off from a couple of weeks back. After applying some chrome paint from the paint pen onto the ends of the axles, I do the same to the bumper and to the headlights. I decided to go for the early original look and fill in as many details as the original would have had. Reassembly time. Oh, first time, look at that. So after dropping the beacon in, rather proud of myself, I pop the windscreen unit back in and clip it onto those rivet posts. The base goes into place with the moulded end first, and then I can clip it down onto the rivet posts, checking that the suspension still works there, and then I can tighten the screws. So here's the model I started off with. It has very chipped paintwork. The transfers were looking a bit sorry for themselves. The beacon there you can see is scratched up. The windows are also a bit cloudy. Missing the ladder. And the axles had rusted up a fair bit. So after coming second place in the poll I recently held, which the GT from last week won, I decided that next up I might as well do the Land Rover because it was a close fought contest. So this one has gone from not to hot. With a new paint job, a buffed up beacon, cleared up windows, a new ladder, new transfers, and the chrome work all filled in. This one's looking fairly decent. Like I say, there's a couple of issues with the transfers which I'll try to rectify at some point. But for the time being, I'm quite happy with the general look of this one. Hasn't been a complete burning success, but you've got to admit it's certainly looking a bit better than it was before. Anyway, I'd just like to take the time to thank my Patreon supporters and all my subscribers. Please like, share, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you again for the next one. Bye for now.